In the captain's cabin, we are told that Donkey Kong has been kidnapped. The menu map marks Donkey Kong's location with an X and says that he is the treasure and not a prisoner. He's being placed at the same level as the banana hoard, as gold or as pure value. The game's subtitle is Diddy's Conquest, a play on words for conquest, the act of invading a land and usually plundering all of its wealth. Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong Country 3 feature characters holding bananas in their hands. These are their objects of desire, food and things of physical value. Donkey Kong Country 2 is the only game where actual money is shown to be the object of desire, something you can't eat, something of a more abstract value. And yet, once again, this is not the supposed aim of this game. The aim is, in theory, to rescue the father, Donkey Kong. It's a quest for Kong, and a conquest of land and treasures. Both meanings here get superimposed. He is not just a prisoner in a cage, but also a treasure in a chest. This game is the introduction of Swanky Kong, the first character who is clearly in love with business and attracting wealth. Most services which were free in the previous game now have a price. The entire Kong family is now following Swanky's example and becoming entrepreneurs. As a counterpoint to this, Donkey Kong Country 3 then it shows us most of the Kongs lounging about. Wrinkly is retired from teaching, Funky is not on active duty at his rental shop, but instead he is fixing stuff in his garage, and so on. The Kongs have worked hard, and now they are relaxing. The entrepreneurial spirit, instead, gets transposed onto the brothers Bear, whose entire existence is as shop owners, right? Maybe this is a shift from Donkey Kong to Banjo-Kazooie, a transference of libido from one franchise to the seeds that will blossom into the next big animal game. The two main additions to this game's roster of friendly characters are, after all, birds and bears. In any case, Donkey Kong Country 2 is at some level about wealth. Even for the Kremlings, their object of desire is the banana hoard in the previous game, but now they're no longer interested. Now they have Crocodile Core, the first sign of a secret treasure hoard of their own. There are many chests of gold on the floor, signaling this to be a stash of all their wealth. But of course, the most obvious sign of wealth here is the energy fountain. As the manual indicates, this is the source of the Kremlings. They no longer want to steal Donkey Kong's bananas. They have a source of energy of their own. Then, in Donkey Kong Country 3, all themes from previous games get fused together. K. Rool wants to kidnap Donkey Kong, but he also wants a source of energy for his creation, Chaos. Donkey Kong serves both purposes simultaneously. He is kidnapped, and in doing so he becomes the prized source of energy. Chaos is simply an outer shell, a body. Without energy, he is nothing. It's interesting to note here that Crocodile Isle takes the form of a giant robot in Donkey Kong 64, as if K. Rool's obsession is to create a robot image of himself, giving birth to a child, a Pinocchio of sorts. Chaos is the boss of the factory stage. Only Donkey Kong Country 3 and Donkey Kong Country have industrial stages, Mechanos and Kremcroc Industries Incorporated. The boss here is Dum Drum, a barrel whose only power is that its body is full of Kremlings. Without them, it simply self-destructs. In that sense, Chaos is the same, a metallic shell full of animals which give it life. The industrial stages are where King K. Rool is working hard on his technological pursuits, and in both cases, the end result seems to be a living metallic shell full of animal life. This makes me wonder about a specific kind of enemy, Clobber. In the Kremlin Crew, He is right in the front line, the closest to the camera. This happens again in both versions of the box art. Not only that, but Diddy seems to be more interested in walking towards Clobber than towards Donkey Kong. It is Dixie who has to tug at his arm and guide him in the correct direction. Does Diddy feel a kinship with Clobber? Well, he seems very interested in treasure in the title screen, and Clobber is always shown close to treasure chests in the box arts. After all, both things are wooden shells filled with life or with energy. Somehow, whereas Crusher is always following the Kongs from far away in the box art, Clobber is almost touching the screen. The first thing we see when turning the game on is a treasure chest, and we are then asked to rescue Donkey Kong, marked as treasure on the map, and also to rescue him from his metallic shell, his prison. All this quest revolves around Diddy. Why? Well, according to the manual, after being caught, Clump, the unconscious, shoves Diddy into a barrel and kicks it into the bushes. After this, Diddy knows no more. He loses consciousness. So Diddy is also a monkey trapped inside a barrel, but he has forgotten. Diddy is trapped. Both Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong Country 3 take place in friendly lands which have been overrun by baddies. But Donkey Kong Country 2 is the only one that takes place entirely on enemy territory. The theme is that of being trapped or being in jail, as shown by the game over screen and, of course, Donkey Kong's kidnapping. Both Donkey Kong Country and Donkey Kong Country 3 have divine birds atop their mountains, but Donkey Kong Country 2 has an empty shell instead of a bird. There is something dead and shell-like about this game. It is definitely the most death-oriented game of the three, in my opinion. Clubber's Toll, for example, shows signs of being a bridge into another world, as in so many world mythologies. You pay the toll and he lets you cross the boundary into death. It makes sense that Clubber should have a punching bag with Diddy's face on it. Clubber wants to kill Diddy, and if Diddy jumps into the golden barrel, he descends into the underworld. In a sense, he dies. Could we say that the Lost World is the land of the dead, then? Well, its name suggests it is a world from the past, a lost, archaic era which is not of this present moment. In a psychoanalytic way, Diddy's descent into the underworld could be a descent into memory, an exploration of forgotten or repressed memories in the unconscious. On the one hand, this plays into the recurring theme in these games of monkeys versus reptiles. As human players, we identify with the Kongs because we come from monkeys, and yet monkeys come from reptiles too, in a sense. If the Kongs are our past, then the Kremlings are even further down the line. They are the evolutionary past of the Kongs themselves. So the Lost World, with its volcanic and reptile imagery, harks back to the past. By visiting it, one is remembering the past. Not only that, but once we get to K. Rool's Keep and find Donkey Kong, the father figure, as a hanged man, the location for Clubber's Kiosk is weirdly set on Donkey Kong Isle itself, as if, in a poetic way, Clubber were guarding the entrance to the previous game, to the past, and that Donkey Kong Island, shaped like a giant stone head, were indeed the Lost World, Diddy's lost past. In fact, the background for Clubber's Kiosk seems to be creme quay, and yet it leads to a crocodile-shaped volcano, like Crocodile Cauldron. This makes me think that creme quay could precede Crocodile Cauldron. In other words, that the order of the game could potentially run backwards into the past. This would set Gangplank Galleon as the final level, as it is in Donkey Kong Country, uniting both games as mirrors of each other, a duality which is transcended with number 3.